Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. Wait, I shouldn't be referring to you all as guys, I should be referring to you as comrades, because Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his Liberal government have decided to go full commie. Maybe they saw their national polling numbers and Trudeau's popularity were falling into a black hole, but apparently they've decided that the solution to their popularity problem is by going after law abiding gun owners once again, as well as cracking down on those who operate short term rental properties. I guess they're trying to shore up their left wing flank, but their left wing flank of the Liberal Party is not under threat of being stolen by the NDP or the Greens. Both of those parties have also stagnated in their support, so all Trudeau's doing is throwing even more support over to the Conservative Party, which, as a conservative, I'm entirely okay with. But I still just want to analyze what's going on here because it's very confusing. We'll first start off with the gun problem, then we will move on to the short term rental Airbnb thing, because all of this is a full frontal assault on property rights of Canadians. But before I get into the clip from the press conference about the gun ban, I just want to remind you guys, if you're not yet a subscriber, think about subscribing to the channel. Go and hit the subscribe button, like this video, leave a comment, and if you want to financially support us, you can also donate to the Give Send Go legal fund that we're running. It's linked both in the description below as well as linked in the comments pinned at the top. Anyways, without further ado, here is our Public Safety Minister, Dominic LeBlanc, announcing this new policy, and also that not only are we banning 324 models of firearms additionally on top of the 1100 that they've already banned, but we're going to be sending some of the guns over to the Ukrainian military, which is insane.
Today, the government is adding a further 324 unique makes and models of assault-style firearms to the list of prohibited firearms in Canada.
Have they ever been able to define what an assault style firearm is? Because I know I'm pausing it early, but this does play into the thing he's going to say later about sending weapons to the Ukrainian military. What does he think the Ukrainian military is using? Hunting rifles? Old Uncle Joe's shotgun? No, they're using actually fully automatic AR weapons.
This prohibition takes effect immediately. This means these firearms can no longer be legally used, sold, or imported in Canada, and can only be transferred or transported under extremely limited circumstances. The government has introduced an amnesty that is currently in force and expires on October 30th, 2025.
Notice there that the expiration date is basically after the next election. So after the Liberals are out of office and they have no duty to enforce this at all, that's when the immunity phase, the amnesty ends, and now people have to hand in their weapons or they're going to be confiscated. They know that the Conservatives are just going to scrap this. This is all a show. It's just trying to make them seem like they take gun violence seriously. And if you take gun violence seriously, you wouldn't be going after law-abiding gun owners. If anything, you'd be making it easier for law-abiding Canadians to actually obtain weapons to defend themselves. This is a tough concept, I know, for the Liberals, but criminals commit crimes. People who go through background checks and go through training to get a possession and acquisition license or a restricted PAL are the least likely to commit a violent crime in Canada. I've seen the stat before, and I've been able to go find it as well. This is not just something I'm making up. A law-abiding gun owner or even just a PAL holder is 1/3 as likely to commit a violent crime or murder somebody than the average Canadian. If anything, we should be encouraging high school students to go get a PAL because it gives them a greater appreciation of the law. But now Dominic's about to move into a very hypocritical part of this policy.
To protect individuals who legally purchased these firearms prior to the ban. This amnesty period will protect these individuals from criminal liability as they take steps to come into compliance with the law. During the amnesty period, there is an exception to allow Indigenous peoples exercising a right under Section 35 of the Constitution, as well as those who use firearms for sustenance hunting to continue to use their now prohibited firearms to hunt, if previously non-restricted, until a suitable replacement can be found.
So, sorry, but if these weapons are so dangerous, why isn't the confiscation happening right away? And why can certain people, like indigenous people, as well as people who need it for sustenance hunting, continue to use them? I thought these were assault weapons of war that are only meant to kill people. Like, obviously not. Obviously, Farmer Joe has a rifle, has a shotgun, has these different models of weapons for a purpose. These are not people getting their firearms smuggled over the border, which apparently the liberals don't care about because they're throwing a fit over Donald Trump wanting them to secure the border, which would actually help protect Canadians from guns coming up from the US. But they do want to go after somebody who's packing their heat from Bass Pro Shop, which I can guarantee you it represents zero of the weapons that gangs in our major cities use. Nobody's going to Bass Pro Shop to get a hunting rifle to then try and knock over a liquor store.
As with the previous list of firearms, these models will, of course, be part of the assault style firearms compensation program. And to that end, I'm pleased to point out that the pilot program of phase 1 of the gun buyback program is now underway. The program will be open.
Underway. They tried to get this started back in like 2020 when they first announced the ban and that there was going to be a buyback program. And if you don't comply, you will just have your weapon taken from you by police officers at your door. It never got off the ground. It's impractical, it's unpopular, and they've wasted hundreds of millions of dollars paying people to just devise how they're going to do this. And they've gotten nowhere. Not one gun has actually been confiscated, and no guns should be confiscated from law-abiding owners. So it's good that it's gotten nowhere. But the fact that they've gotten nowhere like so far should probably be a good indicator of their future behavior. They're merely burning money to hire a bunch of bureaucrats to sit around sharpening pencils and studying something that they're never going to do because would be insane to attempt to actually confiscate this many weapons.
For all businesses in the coming days. As part of that process, the government of Canada has committed to the Ukrainian government to identify whether some of these guns could be donated to support the fight for democracy in Ukraine.
These people are morons. You have to have somebody from Ukraine come here and identify if these weapons can be used for the fight for the democracy. Okay. The fact that you guys don't know that the type of weapons that people purchase legally in Canada are not something that the Ukrainian military would ever be interested in is pathetic and sad. Obviously, they don't want your weapons you got from Bass Pro Shop and from the local gun store. No Ukrainian soldiers can be like running around the trenches with somebody's like double barrel shotgun. Well, they're not going to be using somebody's 22 rifle that they've for some reason banned. A lot of this stuff is semi-automatic and very magazine limited. Nobody's going to use. You're going to get yourself killed if you actually try and use this in a real war zone. That's why this stuff is not actually assault style. It was never assault style. It is a weapon for civilian use and for their civilian protection. That's pretty much it.
My colleague Bill Blair will speak on this in a few moments. In addition to banning these guns, we're also taking action on the regulatory front. Next Friday, December 13th, we will table regulations to ensure that no firearm can come into Canada or be sold in Canada.
Are you guys actually going to be cracking down on poor border security? Oh, no, this is about the guns already coming over legally, because I guess those are the ones that are causing real trouble.
Without first being approved by the RCMP. And no later than the end of January, we will table additional measures in Parliament to address the rates of gun violence in situations of gender-based and intimate partner violence. We will also...
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm just going to end this. This is so stupid. I hate this thing that they're doing. Tracy Wilson is the only person who probably hates it more than anyone from the Canadian Centre for Firearm Rights. They're like, oh, we need to table some legislation regulations to crack down on gender-based firearm violence. Okay, I know that you guys are trying to use the Polytechnic shooting from the 90s in order to justify your ban, but that's disgusting. You're standing on the graves of dead women in a situation that is not replicable in any way. That was not something that was going to happen again, and it was also had nothing to do with law-abiding gun owners. But they've been using this shooting, this school shooting from the 90s to justify everything that they're doing, even though they've made it easier to get away with carrying an actual legal handgun in cities in Canada. They don't actually care about gang violence. They've, in fact, made it easier to be a criminal in Canada with our stupid catch and release system, where even if you get charged, they're just going to immediately let you back on the streets and say, yeah, show up to your court date in 2 years. And even if you keep committing crimes, who cares? Don't worry about it. And then even if you do get sentenced one day, it's going to be like a year and a half, and you're going to get it out in like 6 months on good behavior, even if you're a violent repeat offender. It's insane. These people are absolute hypocrites. But I want to move on to some of the other things that people have been saying, because they're going all in on this. Here's the video that Justin Trudeau posted to his own X account, justifying the shooting, the gun ban here. He says, military-style assault rifles don't belong in your community, so we've banned them. Are they military-style? Do you guys know that? Because apparently the Ukrainian military has to show up to tell you whether or not they're military-style, because this stuff is obviously not military-style. Just black plastic or black metal casing does not mean it's assault-style or it's military-style. That doesn't mean absolutely anything. There are military rifles that are wood. But the Liberals think that, oh my goodness, it's black, ergo it's like somehow more dangerous. Here is Dominic LeBlanc's post from this press conference. He says, firearms designed for the battlefield do not belong in our communities. That's why since 2015, we've done more than any previous government on gun control, and why we're pursuing further action today by prohibiting 324 additional models of assault-style firearms. By the way, they haven't even released the list of these because they don't know what 324 they're even banning now, and they don't want to come under scrutiny for having picked a bunch of stupid weapons. Again, they shouldn't be banning any of these, but they want to avoid, like they did in the past, where they had like BB guns and paintball guns on the ban list because these people are gormlessly stupid and they don't know what they're doing. They are merely trying to attack law-abiding gun owners as a way of buoying their popularity numbers. And let me say that none of this is going to work. Kevin Vaughn here, the independent MP from Spadina, Fort York, makes a good point here. He says, where can we find the list of 324 firearms? The most recent news released on your department's website is from 3 days ago. Surely you would not make an announcement with zero thought and preparation and without a plan for implementation, right? And Kevin's absolutely correct. They have not actually done anything to lay out how these policies work in the past, so why should we trust them now? Here is Yara Sachs saying, who's very in favor of Hamas and the Palestinian Authority having weapons, a very pro-terror type, soft on terror MP, but not for Uncle Farmer Joe, who wants to have a rifle for protection and to, be able to, protect his property as well as for the use, as a tool on his farm. She says 324 more assault-style firearms are now banned in Canada. These are weapons of war that have no place in our communities, so we've banned them. Canada is not safer when people have easy access to these tools built for battlefields, yet that's exactly what conservatives want. She's so foolish. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Can she name 10 firearms that are actually used on the battlefield that are legal in Canada? I doubt it. I doubt she can name one, because you do not have access to fully automatic firearms and extremely high caliber, like sniper rifles and whatnot in this country, because of course you don't. You don't have access to these even in the US or any other place where there is more firearm ownership like Switzerland and whatnot, because that's not the purpose. You obviously don't need them for self-protection like a fully automatic firearm. That's not what they're banning. They're banning people using weapons that have magazine capacities of like 6 or 7 shots, and they're saying that they're weapons of war, even though they're having to be told by the Ukrainian military whether they would even take them or not. And I guarantee you the Ukrainian military is probably going to say, we don't want any of this, and stop co-signing us to you cracking down on your own civilians' ability to own firearms. So we have Marcy Len here saying, femicides can be prevented when we take action on gun violence. No, you're not, because you don't care about gang violence, which also involves killing women. That's why today we've announced that we are prohibiting 324 additional assault-style firearms in Canada. We are protecting women, families, and creating safer communities for all. It's insane that this is what these people are doing. But now I want to jump over to this other story of the Liberals going after short term rental property owners, because the Liberals got absolutely roasted for this, as they should. Apparently, it's very bad that people do what they want with their own property. It's not, there is the Airbnb is not what's caused new property to dry up. It's not what has caused all of this to happen, that the housing crisis is actually to blame on Airbnb. This happened on December 4th, not yesterday, but it is still a very pressing issue here. So Justin Trudeau on his X account says there are more than 200 short-term rentals across the country, like Airbnb and Verbos, that could be turned into housing. So we're giving cities more resources to crack down on those rentals and unlock more homes for Canadians. Why does Justin Trudeau and the Liberals think that these short-term rentals have become so popular? Because I know some people think, well, you can make so much money in a short period of time. Why would you ever make it a long-term rental? Well, the problem is that with these short-term rentals, they're mostly not filled. But the problem is people don't want to give people long-term rentals, because in many municipalities across Canada, there is now rent controls. There is absurdly strong tenant rights, where you can basically break into a rental property, have a fake water bill, and claim that you live there, and then it will take about 2.5 years for the homeowner to actually remove you from the property. It becomes illegal to shut off the water or power, and the government's going to pay for that person's lawyer. That is how bad our squatting is in Canada right now. Who would ever want to be subjected to this? And you could say, well, that doesn't happen to everyone. Okay, well, it's already not very profitable to run long-term rentals because of rent controls everywhere. You can't kick out tenants very easily. You can barely raise rents every single year. And so it's caused a lot of people to take their long-term rental properties off the market and now put them into just short-term. And many of these properties are people's actual homes that they rent out on Airbnb or Vrbo while they themselves are on vacation in like Arizona. There's a lot of house swapping type stuff that goes on, where people who live in Arizona half the year then put up their house at home for people to rent. And I know there are some like conservatives out there, libertarian types, saying, well, a lot of these companies are reducing the housing supply and it's having an effect on the market. And so we need to crack down on this because it's not a legitimate, free market use or whatever. Guys, it's people's property rights. You can do whatever you want. The main problem with the housing market is like, and I said libertarian before. I know some people are going to be like, libertarians are totally fine with short-term rentals. I've had a lot of people call themselves libertarians online say that they support stuff like this. But the real problem behind the housing crisis in Canada is immigration and poor government housing policy and property taxes. Those three things are what is causing people to take long-term rentals off the market and then throw just up a bunch of short-term rentals, and that's it. In fact, they're only going after like small-scale short-term rental owners, to the point where someone has said that in areas where there are a lot of short-term rental properties, what ends up happening is a large corporation ends up just purchasing all of them, and for some reason they're allowed to run a short-term rental community, but an individual is not allowed to rent out their property for short-term rents. This is just an attack on property rights. It's saying that state priorities of housing people, it comes before your rights as an individual to do what you want with your property. Do you know what this is actually going to do? It's just going to cause people to not rent at all. Or they're just going to short-term rent under the table. One of your friends from the States is going to stay there, so they're just going to pay you in cash to be able to stay in your house. That's all that's going to happen. This is not increasing housing supply. This is pretending to take a serious issue seriously by passing legislation. We're going to enable municipalities to crack down, as if these are drug dens. They don't actually care about drug dens or drug houses. That's totally okay. We can decriminalize people selling meth and cocaine and whatnot, and also provide hydromorphone to people so that they can purchase drugs. Yeah, we don't care about actual crime. We care about fake crimes against the state, because you have failed to help the state provide more housing, even though the state has made it very difficult to be able to build housing. And now, in retaliation against the fact that people don't want to build housing, we're now going to wipe out zoning laws which doesn't actually make it easier to build. It just means that the developers who do build can build bigger things that then wreck communities because they do not have the parking spaces for it. They do not have the water facilities for it. They do not have the electrical grid for it. It's nuts what they're trying to do. Yeah, this is socialism. Yes, they're not fully socialist. They're not fully communist, obviously. But on this particular front, they're acting like commies. They're acting like socialists, that your property rights end where the state interests begin. This is exactly how fascists, Soviets, Nazis talk about other people's property rights, and this needs to be very strongly attacked by the conservatives. I know that there's this idea that Airbnb and Verbos have become unpopular. No, the conservatives should be going after the liberals and strongly articulating that they are scapegoating short-term rentals for the mistakes and issues of public policy that the liberals and other municipalities have passed. Anyways, that's it for me today, guys. Again, if you want to support the show, subscribe to the channel. That helps me out. Like the video. You can donate to the Give, Send, Go if you want. And then leave a comment. I always try and scroll through them, even if I don't reply or react to all of them. I always try and get a good sense of what people think, what people would like me to talk about, all that kind of stuff. So anyways, I will be back with another video. Stay tuned.